Hey everybody, welcome back to our video. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Hope you guys been enjoying some of the content. Just as I related in the past few videos, I was sick, so I didn't get time to really post a lot of content for you. So apologies for that. I was just out with some sickness. I'm still um, I'm feeling a lot better, but I just physically, I just need to get back into shape because I've been on rest now for almost a week, and my body is still fairly fatigued. Might be part of sickness. I don't know. But anyways, um, so we're back, trying to get back into the swing of things, and I've been wanting to do this video for a while. Um, which is essentially a follow up to a video that I did a while ago, which was entitled Film Franchises That Could Die Out. And in that video, I talked about franchises that I think just don't have staying power. And I talk about that largely because of just fatigue that has been formed lately, with film consumption and, people just getting kind of exhausted with IPs. And was pointing out a couple of franchises that I felt just don't have staying power. And I wanted to do a part two to that because there's honestly quite a few franchises that I can look at and just say, yeah, I don't think that that's going to have staying power. I don't think that's going to be around for a long, long time. So, so here we are again now with five franchises that I believe will not have staying power. These are franchises that I think that are not going to exist, say, like 20 years down the line. I just don't see them. Maybe in some forms here and there, but ultimately, as they are currently, I don't think that they're going to exist 20 or 30 years down the line. So let's get into this, and we're going to start off with my first entry. And this one I think is honestly very kind of easy to point out. For some people, they might think it's not the case given just the popularity that it has right now. But I personally believe that the John Wick series, I think, is not going to last. And I think that it is mainly due to the fact that, it is it is it is motivated by limitations at this point because we saw them try to expand out the series, and Lionsgate right now is trying to find ways to expand out the brand. But we saw this year with Ballerina, which was the first spin-off of the series, take a nosedive basically, and did not do well. And I know they have other spin-offs that they've announced, but I honestly do not see those things moving forward, especially with Ballerina's financial results. I doubt that we're going to see other spin-offs, maybe other aspects here and there. But what has been illustrative of this brand is that it is limited. It is limited to that of Keanu Reeves, to the certain creatives potentially being on board, and certain styles. And when you are limited to certain styles and certain people, you're eventually going to get fatigue. And you're eventually going to see lesser sales. That's just kind of the domino effect. It was something that happens with all brands. Is that eventually you meet your peak, and then you start seeing lesser and lesser returns. And I think that in the case of John Wick, we are entering now the fifth film in the main series, and I doubt that people are going to be as crazy to see another one. And the John Wick series also, I mean, yeah, it is a very profitable brand. Very profitable in terms of margins, though, because, I mean, production on those films are usually pretty small. They're not juggernauts. They're not like Avengers level. They're not like, they're not the kind of things that will go on to make like $1 billion a piece, like the Transformers films would do, were at one point in time. It's not that kind of brand. It works well because of those limitations, but those limitations I feel are also is what's going to kill it, because they don't have room to expand the brand. They don't have room to get people invested in other characters or actors. It just doesn't have that kind of muscle, because when you take out Keanu Reeves, it just looks like any generic action flick, which is very evident to me with Ballerina. So, so yeah, I don't think this brand is gonna go much anywhere. I don't think it's gonna take off like Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious, I honestly think is also gonna die out. I said that in my other video. Fast and Furious, you're getting into like now 10 films, and I seriously doubt that it's going to have those kinds of legs. But Fast and Furious reinvented itself many years ago into the thing that it now is. I don't see that happening with John Wick. John Wick is very content with what it is, and I just don't think that that's going to mean much many years down the line. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So, okay, my second entry. I think this one's also a bit obvious, given just again just culturally. I think that it's a product of its time, but I don't think it's going to mean much in the future. And that is the Despicable Me franchise. This series does very well, and currently is still doing very well. The last film, Despicable Me 4, did very well. I think that they have another Minions on the way or something like that. I honestly think that this is a product of its time, and I think that right now it has its effect culturally because social media kind of I think is really what dictates the success of this series nowadays. A lot of people are just kind of dressing up in the Minions and stuff like that. Kids obviously like the series as well, but I do believe that this is a series of today, but not a series of tomorrow, because there's going to be another series, some form of animation that's going to take off, and that's going to become the new thing, right? So right now it's Despicable Me, and that's what's getting a lot of people motivated to see those films because of the larger fan bases, the larger crowds that are drawn to this series. Because for them, that is the animation that they fancy right now, But there's going to be something that comes along, something that is going to take social media by storm, and then something like Despicable Me is not going to be seen as as valuable, because now you got the new hotness, but over here, it's a series that's now been going on well over a decade at this point, and I think that again with time. I just don't see people fancying seeing like the sixth or seventh Despicable Me film. I just honestly don't see it. So I think that this is more of a product of time. I think that this is more to do with just how social media has taken to the brand. But I think that when something new comes along and it really, really hits with the demographic of that time period, I think Despicable Me is going to lose its staying power. And I don't think it's going to have as strong of legs in the near future. So that's my opinion on that. My third one is very much so, again, I think product of time. And I think that we're actually going to see if a little bit of fatigue happening or a little bit of a lesser return happening this year. And that is with the Avatar series. I know that this series does major business. We know these films do gangbusters, and just to be clear, I don't think that the next film that's coming up, Fire and Ash, I don't believe that film is not going to not going to make $1 billion. I do believe it will make $1 billion. However, if you're saying, do you think that this film is going to do $2 billion? That's where we differ a little bit. I honestly think that it was probably going to do a little less, and a lot of what motivates the Avatar series, I think, is technology. I think it's a lot more to do with tech, because the funniest thing about these films is that nobody really talks about them once they're out. I rarely see like large conversations for these films. I don't see like massive fan bases. I think that the money that gets collected from these films is more to do with technology, association with technology, and then people just kind of look at it as a very, very fancy demo. And Avatar, in many ways, is that, And again, similar to Despicable Me, there may be a film that rivals that of what Avatar is built on. and Avatar will be seen as a lesser thing. But I think it's more to do with also time between projects. Avatar 2 came out, I think, God, I want to say like 13 years after the original came out. So there was a long, long time for people to, to cultivate some kind of fan base. And from that, people interest for a sequel also became a lot more evident because of longer time between films. This is coming out, Avatar Fire and Ash. This is coming out, I believe, 2 or 3 years after The Way of Water. So I honestly think that it's going to suffer a little bit because there is that smaller gap of time. And I just don't think that people have a strong spirit when it comes to this brand. I just don't think that people sincerely care about the characters as much as they care about the visualizations, as much as they care about the world, as much as they care about the technology that goes into making these films. So, it baffles me, why these movies do the things that they do, you know, like, and I think that it will eventually meet its end, because James Cameron, remember he has these ambitions to do like 5 or 6 films in the Avatar brand, and that Disney is going to do what they're going to do, they're going to do their own expansions, spin-offs and stuff like that. I don't see Avatar lasting out. And seriously, I don't think it's going to do this time around, especially because The Way of Water, I was like, oh no, there's no way that'll do 2 billion, and then I was wrong about that. I honestly think that this film, Fire and Ash, I honestly think this is not going to do $2 billion because of just how close of the releases there are between each other. And just for the future as a whole, as a brand, I don't see this lasting out for maybe another, if the films are consistent, right? If they keep coming out every 2 or 3 years, I would say in like 15, 20 years, I honestly think people are going to get a little tired of it. I think there's just not a whole lot within that fan base, within that community to sustain that series for the next couple of years, for the next decade or so. I just don't think so. So, we'll see. But I think that, again, this is a product of its time. And I think that time is going to start wearing this year. I think that you're going to see Fire and Ash make less than the other 2 films, and I think that that's going to start an effect that may not be stopped. So, and the fourth thing that we're going to talk about, this one, I honestly think of all the entries I've have on this list, I think this one is the closest that's gotten to like death already, and that is Indiana Jones. Now, we know that at some point Disney is going to reboot the series. At this point, we know they're going to. I don't want to sound a certain way here. It's probably the truth. It's a dark way of looking at it, but it's honestly true. I think that Disney's honestly waiting for Harrison Ford to maybe pass away, and then they'll reboot it. And they'll make it like a legacy. I'll reboot, like, oh look, we're gonna honor the original films, because Harrison Ford's been very adamant, apparently, of not having a reboot occur. I don't know how much authority he has on that decision. I don't think he really does. I think he's just speaking more creatively. But I think out of respect, I think that Disney's just gonna wait it out, and then they'll eventually reboot it. But even with a reboot on the horizon, I don't think that Indiana Jones at this point is that valuable as a brand. I think it's considered something of a legacy, like something of a value, of a nostalgia, but I don't think that it has a current effect on modern day audience. I just don't think people really give a shit. I think that they know about Indiana Jones, but I don't think that they really give a shit. And I don't think that a reboot that would star, like, I don't know, Chris Pratt or whoever's the new hotness out there right now, or who has that Harrison Ford type of charm, like maybe like a Glenn Powell, like it would be a decent Indiana Jones. I don't know, but like that kind of thing, I just don't think people are going to care. I just don't think that the brand really has a whole lot of life left in it. Dial of Destiny, I think, is kind of an illustration of that as well, because you have still Harrison Ford in the saddle, you still have him there, leading the force, and it didn't do all that well. And a lot of that, again, could be attributed also to reception. But I think that largely it's to do with just appetite. I just think people today don't have that much of a stronghold when it comes to that brand. And it's a brand that I feel is better suited for the times of like the early 2000s, back in, of course, during its time, during the 80s. I just don't think it has large legs today. And I doubt that many people would seek out another Indiana Jones film if it were to come out, especially if they're going to reboot it without Harrison Ford. You're going to lose a lot of audiences from there as well. Large demographics are probably not going to even want to show up for that. So I think you're kind of in a lose-lose situation with the brand, and you might have a better gamble on TV, to be honest with you. But in terms of film, I think that we might be at the end of this brand. A reboot probably is in the works, but I don't think that's going to really save it when it's all said and done. And finally, this one, I'm a little torn on, but I'm leaning more towards the feeling that it probably will die out. And that is the Planet of the Apes series. Now, it technically has already have gotten some fatigue because the most recent film in the series, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, financially it didn't really do all that well. It barely turned a profit, and for some reason they're deciding still to move forward with another film, which I still say is not a smart move. It didn't make any larger margins, any larger profits, so I don't understand why you would want to invest the same amount of money or even more to another film in this series. But I think I'm thinking about it more culturally, more narratively. Is there a value to seeing the story again? I just don't think so. And I think, again, financially, I just don't think that people are as curious. I'm thinking more about, people on like social media, people who are, discuss film in a certain way. A lot of people my age, what kinds of projects do they fancy? What kind of genres do they find themselves intrigued by? And something like Planet of the Apes, which is, a lot of social and political commentary wrapped in science fiction. It's a kind of a specific audience, Yes, it's a legacy brand. Yes, it has been around for many decades now, but I don't think that it has the staying power. I don't think that, there's only so much you can do with the brand at this point too, because you've done the original series. You've now had this in some ways a prequel series. The only place you can go is rebooting it, and I don't see how you differentiate that from this established series of films with Rise, Dawn, War, all this stuff. I don't see how you differentiate that. And I just don't think that people just have a large intrigue, interest of this series, and evidenced so by the box office with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Planet of the Apes. Even when you saw the decline from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes to War for the Planet of the Apes, it's pretty evident that the series lately, and I think for moving forward, I just don't think has that big audience behind it anymore. So I'm thinking of this more in the vein of just where does this fit in a modern day audience member? And I just don't think it exists. I think it's more niche. I think it's more specific. I don't think that it's going to attract, and it hasn't really. Again, looking at Kingdom, it just hasn't really attracted all that much. So yeah. So I'm thinking of it more in the vein of just literal interest, what people are literally interested in. I just don't think that Planet of the Apes really fits that bill, if we're being perfectly honest. So yeah. So those are my thoughts on that. Now I could be wrong about some of these. The one that I would be the most iffy on the list, like I said, maybe Planet of the Apes, maybe even Despicable Me. I might be a little bit 50-50 on, but the rest of these I personally believe just don't have staying power because of either limitations within the brand, like a lack of innovation within their brands, or just by pure interest currently, and how that's evolving over time with new audience members, with people might like in certain generations coming in. It just seems as though that the interest is either limited or it's just starting to slow down. So, but that's just how I feel. So you guys let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Do you guys feel the same way about these brands? Do you guys think that they will last out for the next decade or so? And what franchises do you believe are losing steam and potentially might die out in the future? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.